Hey everybody, welcome back to Brainiac Baseball's 1985 Detroit Tigers season replay. This will be the final video for the 1985 season, as well as the entirety of the Detroit Tigers sim that we've been doing for the last 6 seasons, I suppose. I mean, it's over a 3-year period in real time that we've done this. And yesterday we completed the playoffs with the Dodgers coming back to win the World Series over the White Sox. We also went through and took a look at all of the players who became free agents, including our own Tigers that we either re-signed or we let them go to free agency. And so today, we want to take just a little bit of time here, I think, and look at the league leaders for the 6 seasons that we played. I think it would be interesting to look and see which players in that time frame were the best players, in Baseball Mogul. Now, we started in 1980, okay? And a lot of the players who would eventually become Hall of Famers in real life, the game quickly diminishes their skill set. So while you might think, Dave Parker and, any quality player from that era should be among the league leaders, that's just not the case. As soon as you create a sim in Baseball Mogul, the great players die off and the schlubs become all-stars. And so I think what we're going to find, if I had to take a stab at it, is we're going to find a lot of players that we probably don't even recognize among the elite over this 6-year course. So before we get into that, we want to take one last look here at the standings. We didn't really cover that yesterday. The one thing I want to point out is that I'm sure all of you know, I create my own stadium effects for each team based on my own mathematical equation. And I just want to point out some of the better results from my calculations. First and foremost, the average American League team hit 158 home runs. That is only 3 more than what the American League did in real life in 1985. So we were right there with it. The American League batting average in 1985, I believe, was 261. And my sim had it a little bit higher at 267. The stolen base totals were way higher. But you cannot control that with stadium effects. This is just what the gameplay dictates. And I believe the ERA for the American League was just above 4. So we're talking about a half run more, which can be significant over a full season. So that is kind of where we were accurate, was with the home runs, with the power that the game provides. Now, Seattle in real life only hit about 170 home runs, and they ended up hitting 270 in our sim. So somewhere among all the teams, it balanced out. But there were definitely some extremes, like Seattle only hitting 270, and Baltimore only, which is absurd. Baltimore's only 2 years away from winning the World Series in '83. So, yeah, I mean, there definitely is some major discrepancies there. But on average, things worked out about the way that I hoped they would. And when I continue to play this off line on, through our Facebook page, where if you want to find out what happens in the future with this sim, you can go to our Facebook link in the description below and just like our page, and you'll get the updates whenever I do continue this series. But I lost my train of thought on what I was going to say about this 85 sim. But going forward, I feel like, just to finish up with the Tigers specifically, we're going to need to get 1 or 2 more good bats. There's plenty of free agents out there that we can maybe fill some holes and maybe do a trade or two. And certainly we need a fifth starter. And I'm thinking about Floyd Bannister. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a tough call because we're going to have to pay whomever. Vicente Palacios definitely showed that he has some skills, and he may be our sixth starter going into next year. Tom Glavine's not there yet. He'll be in Double-A next year. We got Jim Abbott and Jaime Navarro, who could help us somewhere in there. But we don't have a very good minor league system. We've traded off a lot of our decent pitchers. And so there, pardon me, there are definitely holes to fill on our team. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look here at the league leaders in the entirety of our Sim series. Now, it's going to be from 1980 through 1985. So this is up to date through the end of the season. And you'll see here that with batting average, it's kind of the guys you would expect to have the highest batting average. There's Boggs, there's Gwynn. Willie McGee won a batting championship in real life. So did Johnny Ray. George Brett, of course, did. You know, I don't know what to say about Marty Barrett or Terry Poole or Pedro Guerrero. But clearly Paul Molitor and Mad Dog, Bill Madlock, were great hitters during their time. And then you start to get the schlubs finding their way in. Robin Yount, not a schlub. He's very good, of course, Hall of Fame. And Trammell, good hitter in his career. You see some speedsters. You also see some, you know, no names that have become really popular in our sim. So there's your batting champion leaders for the 6 seasons. Let's just take a quick look through the offensive categories, and then we'll look at the pitchers next. Most at-bats, Paul Molitor. Lou Whitaker's right there. So is Trammell from our team. Even George Brett is up there. Some weird names like Gary Weiss of the Dodgers. There you have it. We also have doubles. Let's see. Johnny Ray by 54 doubles. He had a 64 double season in 1983. Then he was traded to the White Sox and then eventually was a San Francisco Giant. So he started hitting as a rookie in our 1980 season. So for those 6 years, he had 276 doubles. Pretty impressive. You're not going to find any Tigers on this list intentionally. Anyway, you don't see Trammell. You don't see Whitaker. You don't see Kirk Gibson. Okay, extra base hits. George Brett had the most. Of course, he was on our Tigers team for about 2 total seasons over a 3-year span. Lou Whitaker had 233 with Trammell. Yeah, Trammell's right there. So Whitaker and Trammell, who we just got rid of in April of this year, he's going to be primarily statistically Detroit heavy. Let's take a look at let's look at fielders. Let's see how every position did. Butch Whitaker, best fielding catcher. Lance Parrish, no pants Lance, free agent, of course. Did not play at all this year, but he was at 981, right in the middle of the pack. At first base, Joe DeSa, Keith Hernandez, and Jim Traber, just a little bit above Harris and Dennis Worth. You see some other names in there that played pretty steadily. Nobody to get excited about. I mean, Keith Hernandez, of course, Gold Glover, so that makes sense. Second base, Lou tied for second with Paul Molitor, who became a DH at some point. And Johnny Ray, bump. Harold Reynolds. The worst is Joe Pittman with Shooty Babbitt. 972 percentage. Okay, third base. Well, oops, I didn't mean to click on him, but there's George Brett right in the middle. We never did find a good third baseman to take over at that position. We gave it to Tom Brookins, who just couldn't quite get there. We traded for George Brett. That didn't work out so well. We never did really find someone this year. Mike Pagliarulo played pretty well for us, but he's not the long-term answer. But he'll be at third base next year. Shortstop, of course, is the Wizard. Just a tick above Scott Fletcher and Spike Owen. Alan Trammell near the top. Good job by him. If you don't know, this means that they're free agents currently. Would they have the ... dots next to Mike Fishlips? He was the worst with Odie Davis. Maybe one of the highlights is I called Mike Fishlin Mike Fishlips, and then he hit a grand slam to win the ball game. That was pretty funny in the moment. In left field, not a lot of qualifiers. Gibby, the second best, which would never happen in real life, but I'm happy for him. Steve Kemp made a lot of errors. All right. Center field, there's Willie at the top, just below Lee Mazzilli, Brett Butler, Willie McGee, Rick Manning. A lot of steady names. Chet Lemon, it's crazy that he'd be at the bottom. And it's even crazy that he qualified. He was not very good. And right field is Dave Winfield and Tony Gwynn with the 990. A couple retired ball players and some that are free agents. There's Dwight Evans. Defensively, Clint Hurdle, who's a free agent, and Leon Roberts were the worst defenders. Okay. We'll take a look here at, how about who had the most hits in those 6 seasons? Wade Boggs and Paul Molitor. There's George Brett, Johnny Ray, Pedro Guerrero. Gene Richards is a leadoff hitter, so that makes some sense. Willie Randolph, leadoff hitter. Willie McGee, good contact hitter, and Trammell and Marty Barrett. Tony Gwynn in there. I think Tony Gwynn did not play. Okay, he did get a little bit of at-bats as a rookie in 1980 in our sim. Of course, he wasn't a rookie until 1982 in real life. But, okay, I mean, he worked his way into the top 25. There's Sweet Lou with 804. And even Carl Pagel made the list. Okay. Who got hit by a pitch the most? Gary Templeton on the Royals now with 22, and Steve Kemp had 20. No other Tigers. Okay, hit by pitch. Home runs! This is what we all want to see. Ricardo. Okay, I just disconnected. I got excited by Ricardo Saenz. I was going to say straight out of the Mexican League. Started as an 18-year-old, and all he's done is hit bombs and hit for average. And a really great card created by Jeremy DeYoung. We need to give him one last shout out. If you have not watched the 1980s, it's a strike-shortened year. We only played 110 games. And Jeremy DeYoung, an artist that I connected with off of Facebook, created baseball cards, the 1981 style cards for 1981, for all the players that were on the opening day roster. And every time they got traded, he would create a new card with their new team. It's really fun to watch that season. Only 110 games, and the cards, like this one is fantastic. You could tell that it's altered, but also it's really great. And there were some that were not so great, but that's also what made it fun, you know. A great job by him. And anyway, look at the rest of the home runs here. Kevin Mitchell. There's Ron Kittle, who's a free agent. Alan Cockrell, who just won the American League MVP this year. Plenty of home run power. And oh, look at this. Gibson, Trammell, and Whitaker all hit 100 home runs. That's weird, right? That's kind of strange. But cool. And then George Brett right there with 99. Big Daddy had 94. Very cool. I mean, Rod Allen has 89 home runs over this period, and I don't even think he had 89 at-bats in real life in Major League Baseball. And I do really kind of like that about Baseball Mogul. I talk a lot of trash about Baseball Mogul, and it deserves it. As we go back to games played, we missed that. Baseball Mogul certainly deserves all the ire that I give it, but I do enjoy the fact that sometimes these schlubs get a second chance to perform. You know, how else could Gary Weiss, with his 80-style glasses, get to have 3,200 at-bats? Kind of amazing. All right. So there's the games played if you were curious. Okay. Intentional walks, I guess that sort of matters out of curiosity. I wouldn't want to pitch to Boggs or Gwynn either. May as well just give him a free pass. On base percentage, Wade Boggs, almost a 400 on base percentage. And a original Detroit Tiger in the 1980 season, we traded him away. I don't think we'll have time to get to all the trades, but he was one we traded early on. And that was probably a bad idea. Outfield assists, yeah, Dave Anderson, that makes sense. Great defensive outfielder over his entire career. Greg Gross and Gene Richards, I don't think so. Steve Kemp, definitely not. I mean, Von Hayes, yes, very good defensive center fielder. Jim Rice, not really. Ricky Henderson, definitely not. Fred Lynn was great defensively. Puckett was great defensively. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of these outfield assists happen because the arm rating is so low that there's more opportunities the games give to be thrown out on the base path when the ball's hit to one of those outfielders. So it's just, you know, the odds. On base plus slugging, it is Ricardo Sainz, Wade Boggs, George Brett, Gwynn, Pedro. Total plate appearances, Willie Randolph. At bats was Molitor. So Willie Randolph did gain some ground and surpassed him in total plate appearances. Lou Whitaker and Trammell so close to each other. And in reality, you know, sorry, my allergies. In reality, you know, they're statistically so close to each other for their whole careers. So it, you know, it does kind of make some sense. Oh man, allergies. Okay, runs batted in. Pedro Guerrero with 541. Oh, let's look at him. He had 1 year where he had over 100. So we're just seeing some consistency here. Never mind 1981, the strike-shortened year, where he only played in 96 of the 110 games. So very consistent. Brett, Matusik, Ricardo Sainz, Kevin Mitchell. I think Matusik was an MVP, so was Mitchell. Steve Kemp absolutely was. Ron Hassey was an MVP in our sim. All right. Let's see. Moving on. Trying to keep it moving. Want to keep it under 45 minutes if we can. Runners thrown out. Butch Weiniger, he was an everyday catcher over 6 seasons, and he was traded multiple times to Seattle and eventually back to Seattle. And he probably would not have been the everyday catcher if Ray Smith hadn't got injured. Were there any Tigers? Yeah, Parrish, 145. And that's it. Okay. Runner thrown out percentage. The best was Dennis Littlejohn at 37.5%. Parrish was right at 30%. Runs scored. Whoa! Lou Whitaker at the top. 502 runs. That's kind of amazing. Paul Molitor, just a couple runs back. There's Brett and Trammell and Ricky Peters, Ricardo Sainz. There's like 3 Rickies right there. Okay. Pretty cool. LaRue, Washington. Come on. All right. Sacrifice hits. No Doug Baker. Okay, yeah, these are all pitchers from the National League. That's stupid. Okay. Sac flies. Wade Boggs, George Brett. I mean, you're seeing, some of the better players from the 80s on this list. I guess I didn't think there would be so many. I assumed there would be more Bob Baylors and Randy Reddys. Okay, moving on to slugging. It's Ricardo. Lou Whitaker down there, over 400. Not terrible. Stolen bases. Ricky 340. Kim Allen, remember him? On Seattle in our sim. Got traded to Cincinnati. It had 97. He was almost the first baseball mogul player to get to triple digits in stolen bases. And now at age 31, he didn't even make it to the majors in 85 in AAA with a 73 rating and an 85 speed. Gene Richards, Willie. No, you won't find any real Tigers in here. Every time we tried hard, we failed. I mean, Willie Wilson had 14 stolen bases. He was 37 for 51 this year. And the year that we had Ricky on the team for the full season, we couldn't steal. He was useless. 35 for 57 and 32 for 55. We couldn't, it was like the game was more than aware that we would utilize him as an everyday, at every time he'd reach base, opportunity to get a stolen base. And yeah, that was the end. He just couldn't get it done. Carl Pagel struck out the most, and I bet you he might have walked the most. All right. We hit and run so much, you won't find a Tiger on this list. Well, there's Gibson and Kemp. Nobody else. Okay. Let's see. Total bases. Paul Molitor, just George Brett. Lou Whitaker on there. Trammell, 2. Cool. Triples. Willie Randolph had 39 in 6th season. Not necessarily fast guys on the list. There's Ozzie. There's a fast guy. Willie Wilson had 23. Lou Whitaker had 21. And Gibson had 21. Walks. Well, okay, Carl Pagel finished 3rd. Oh, and Ricky and Glenn Gulliver at the top. Okay. Jack Clark. Tony Phillips, that makes sense. I mean, there's really not anyone else on here that I would say is a guy that would take a bunch of pitches. All right, let's go and do the pitching. And then I'll check the time and see if we have time to look at a few trades. Complete games, we're doing the pitchers here. All both leagues, everybody's accumulated stats. Mark Langston had 42, and so did J.R. Richard. That son of a bitch, Frank Tanana, had 40. You're not going to find any Tigers pitchers on there. Jack Morris, did he make the list? No. Okay. ERA. J.R. Richard, only 3 pitchers. Under 3, Stephon Weaver right at 3. But there's Bob Welch and Fernando Valenzuela. Teddy Higuera. No Tigers on this list either. And a lot of schlubs. And, you know, every generation has a schlub that shows up and does something good. Games pitched. Got to be a lot of Tigers here. Well, okay, Bill Cludd did most appearances, 367. Bedrock had 358. I saw a photo this morning, of Steve Bedrosian hugging Olivia Newton-John. Yeah, that's what I do with my mornings. Dave Smith, 354. There's a Tiger. Roger Weaver. Looking for Tigers. You'd think there'd be a ton. Kami, 276. Cappy, 272. That's all there is. A lot of other big names showing up. Okay, let's see. Home runs allowed. Larry McCall, 223. Floyd Bannister, youch. Maybe I won't sign Floyd Bannister. Lefties and righties. Jack Morris gave up 128. No other Tigers on this list. Yeah, last night when I was looking at, as we go to innings pitched, I was looking at all the free agent re-signings, and Baltimore re-signed Dave Rozema to a 4-year deal, and signed Randy Jones for 2 years at the major league minimum. I think he has a 63 rating. Rick Ownby had the most innings pitched. Roger Slagle. There's Frankie, who's a free agent. Juan Eichelberger. Jack Morris making the list. Okay. Innings pitched. Okay. Things that we care about. I guess quality starts. I'm curious. Rick Ownby, we need to point this out. Rick Ownby, probably the best pitcher in our sim. He won 105 games. That's he had one bad year, the strike shortened year, and then he was pretty much been untouchable since then. He even had a 194 ERA for the Mets. Tigers? Nerp. Okay. Saves. Mark Clear. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. He's consistently been a closer every year except for 84, where he only had 6, but otherwise, that's how you get to the top. Bruce Sutter. We did have Tom Hankey last year. What did he do? 15 out of 18. We traded for him at the trade deadline, and then we did not re-sign him. And Roger Weaver, putting it together, continuing to get saves. Made it to the World Series this year. How did he do in the World Series? He had a save. Good for him. You'll see the playoff numbers down here. He's pitched in 4 games in our 82 ALCS. By the time we made it to the World Series last year, we'd already traded him to Toronto, and then Toronto had traded him to the White Sox. There's Dave Smith, our current guy, who will no longer be with our team. We will move Fisher to the closer role and let Dave Smith go to another team. I'll trade him away. What's his rating? 80. I hope it's above 80 going into next year. And that's about it. All right. Strikeouts pitched, of course. J.R. Richard had the most strikeouts by a lot, really. 1227. And Mark Langston, I think probably by the end of the next season, might take that over. This guy is just mowing everybody down. And he's got 320 win seasons, including this year. Jack Morris, 875. How many did he have this year with the Yankees? Only 156, and he walked over 100 with a 4 ERA. I mean, Jack Morris made it to the Hall of Fame with a 3.90 career ERA. So with, in this sim, you sort of have to take a season or two with Jack having a bad year. There's Clemens on his way. He'll be at the top before too long. No other Tiger in there. All right. I guess we're down to wins. Let's take a look. Yeah, Rick Ownby. That makes sense. Rick Ownby, Roger Slegel, J.R. Richard, Mark Langston. Is Morris in there? Yeah, he's got 80 in 6 years. Not going to find too many others. I mean, just so many weird names you wouldn't normally think. Gary Hanna's. Look at that mustache. Although he was on the Dodgers up until last year. So that's how you win. You be on the best team. Okay, so that's going to do it. I hope everyone enjoyed looking at that. I mean, I was certainly curious who the best players were over that period of time. We'll go to transactions real quick. And I know that there are plenty of people out there that want to know precisely how some of these trades went. We'll go back to 1980. How much time do we have here? I just do want to keep it somewhat concise. Okay, we got about 13 minutes. That's a lot of time. Put that right down here. Okay. Yeah, we got lots of time. So the very first trade I made was 3 weeks into the season, almost a full month. We traded Mike Chris, who's still on Boston. So just that alone makes them win that trade. He's won 50 games, lost 29, pitched in the ALCS. And we got Gary Hancock, or Gary Footpenis, as we like to call him. And he was our team MVP that year. That first year, batted .301 with 20 home runs, 81 RBI. That was a tough year, our very first year. We also got Carlton Fisk, who the game immediately just sent him into an abyss. He did have 13 home runs for us, but we traded him to Oaktown, and that's where he's been ever since. And we got Bob Stanley, who just could not do anything right. He was terrible. We traded him to Montreal, I think during the Bryn Smith trade, and Bobby Ramos. And you can see that he's a free agent. And he sucked. Okay. We traded Barry Bonnell to Detroit because we were getting all those injuries to our center fielders. So we got Barry Bonnell, and we got rid of some schlubs, of which Lynn Jones had a pretty good career, playing somewhat regularly, still playing at age 32. Good defensive ratings, so that'll keep him on the the MLB rosters. And then we got Rick Russell in June. We traded Glenn Gulliver, which you saw was the #1 guy walking. And we got Rick Russell, and he went 6-10 with a 4.80 ERA. I'm not winning any. You know what? I'm already going to declare it. I was not a good GM. Tom Hume we traded for. He sucked. We got rid of him, and now he's retired. We sent away Darryl Brown and Jim Gaudette. No loss, really. We traded John Hiller for Bob Baylor because we had another outfield injury. And Bob Baylor got 136 at-bats. We're just giving away all the minor leaguers. And then we traded Rick Peters, who was... But he was not defensively, I think he was in the 60s. So we couldn't actually use him at, in his regular position. He also was a second baseman, and that didn't help either. Well, how did we use him? God, we're not going to get through this like I hoped. 1 game at second base, 9 in the outfield, right field, left field. Okay, we tried. But we traded him for Jim Bibby, and yes, James K's favorite, Omar Moreno. There you go, James. You wanted to see what happened to Omar Moreno. He had that one big year after we traded him in Baltimore, where he was an everyday player, 65 stolen bases, and then he has slowly declined. He's still on the Blue Jays as a fourth outfielder, and he is good defensively, and he still does have speed. Okay. And Jim Bibby went 7-0 as we were trying to make a playoff run, and then he just fell off the map. He won 7 of his first 10 games, and then he stopped pitching altogether. And, that was the end of that. Let's see what else we got here. We did get Tony Armas for money and Jack Billingham. That did not help us at all. Another outfielder didn't work out. Here's a great trade in our favor. We traded Rick Leach, who did play this year for the Yankees, former University of Michigan quarterback, back when I first started going to Michigan games. And we got Keith Comstock, who was great up until this year. He did have a bad year there in 81, but that was okay. So we absolutely won that deal. Then I got rid of Richie Hebner, one of my least favorite Tigers, to the Mets for money. And we got rid of, this is after the season. This is in December. Then we got rid of Fisk and Pitaro for Wayne Gross, who I thought would be our regular third baseman, and he just sucked. And he was done. We traded him away later on, and it was over. Okay, let's go to 81. We're going to go over. Okay, not that many in 81. Okay, bye-bye to Rick Russell. Nice knowing you. Shotzi went. Putman. We got Ricky B. Ricky. And you know how that turned out. A kind of a disappointment. You could probably say they won that trade, but I don't think there was any real winners. Then we traded Omar Moreno. And we got Bryn Smith, who we thought could be a good fifth starter for us. And he was not. Nor has he been for anybody else. Did not pitch in the majors this year. And we did get Bobby Ramos, who in his first year batted .386 as the backup catcher and as the primary catcher for Bryn Smith. We tried that out. That didn't work. We traded Larry Pashnick to Houston, and we got Mickey Hatcher, who we did not use right away, and then he became our team MVP in 1962, and probably deserved it in 83. So we got 2 really great years out of another schlub, very much in the same realm as Terry Kennedy, a middling rated player who actually put up good numbers. So we won that deal. We could say that without a doubt. Then we got Tom Filer for Wayne Gross and Stegosaurus. And Father was okay until he wasn't. 189 ERA. Just put that in your pipe and smoke it. We traded Milt to the Yankees for Reggie Jackson. It was like the corpse of Reggie Jackson. Reggie just had nothing left. He pulled a George Brett. He had 1 home run in 49 games. Then he did hit 10 for us the next year, and we won Pittsburgh. Oh, boy. We tried. Now, here's a good trade, underrated. We got the Brock Ness Monster from the Dodgers. Who did we give up? Oh, Steve Kemp. That's right, Kemp. We traded him away, and he was wayward for a while. He went to the Dodgers. He had a full season in St. Louis. He went to New York, and he won the MVP in the '83 season. So, and he's still putting up okay numbers. In decline. But Greg Brock, you know what he did for us, the Brock Nest Monster. He was great until he got injured for the entirety of the '85 season. We tried to sign him late, but the Rangers pulled the trigger quicker, and now he will be their first baseman next year. We got rid of Jason Thompson for Galarraga, but Galarraga never made it to the majors. We got rid of Dave Tobick, who was terrible. And we got Kevin Big Hit Bass for Pat Underwood. You can see the makings of a future team in the '82 season. I'm sorry, this is the '81 season. And you know what Big Hit Bass has done for us. He's played really well as a fourth outfielder, stepped up when we've traded people away, and, I mean, he got the nickname Big Hit Bass instead of Big Mouth Bass, right? Okay, we got to look at '82. How are we doing on time? Oh, boy. All right. '82. I mean, I'm just looking to see who we got here. We got Doug Drabeck. He's already gone. Eddie Miller is gone. Jeffrey Leonard is gone. We did get Guy Solars, who was okay for a minute. Got rid of Bryn Smith. We got George Wright back. Okay, we got Bert Blyleven for a big pile of schlubby schlubbersons, but now Bob Melvin is hitting for the Mets, everyday catcher. Mike Laga is an everyday player, 93 RBI for the Pirates. And Jim Weaver, everyday player for the Pirates in right field. Pretty consistent, a low batting average. And what did we get out of Bert Blyleven? A season and a half of starts. Oh, Bert. Now, he did pitch well for us, I mean, when he played. But he was just injured all the time. And that did not work out. So that was a 3-for-1 deal, and we lost that deal. We got Dave Smith for Scotty Earl and Mike Henneman. That worked out good. We got Eddie Murray, and we gave up Schlubs. Well, Randy O'Neal just won 19 games for Baltimore. Eddie Murray was terrible. Hit 2 home runs down the stretch for the heading toward the ALCS. He went 1 for 18 in the ALCS that year for us. Murray. Okay, '83. Moving along. We traded for Chet Lemon. Milwaukee asked for the world. The only thing we really gave up of any quality was Brian Harvey, future closer. And he's saved 61 games in the last 2 years. So, you know. And we got Chet Lemon, and he did Jack Nikes. 241 and 178 before we traded him to Kansas City. That sucks. Here we are. Now, here's the trade that we won hands down. We traded away Chuck Carey, who is yet to pitch for the Cardinals, still stuck in Double-A. And we got Mikey Pags and TK, and Roy Thomas was great in his 2 years. He's on the Royals now. So Roy Thomas was awesome. TK is our team MVP, voted by you guys. There's been 11 votes on that if you want to check it out on our Brainiac Baseball community page here on YouTube. You can vote. Voting is still open. Yeah, I mean, just a great year this year. Also a fantastic year, batting .310 last year. And before we figured it out, when we still had Parrish, he did okay too in part-time work. And then Mikey Pags, a guy I never would have used if until we traded George Brett, Had a 71 rating, and look what he did. He almost had 100 hits, 16 home runs in 102 games, batting .282. And he'll split time. Well, he'll get the job next year, but he'll probably split time with Matt Williams, lefty-righty matchups, hopefully. And then we blew it. We're going, tried to make the playoffs. We traded for Joaquin Andahar, and he sucked the pipe. 2-5 with a 5 ERA. We cut him. Nobody would trade for him. And the Padres signed him, and he went 3-0. And then he pitched last year for Boston a little bit. What a jerk. We got Rich Gedman in that deal. He's gone. We give up Bruce Robbins, who just won 18 games for the Astros. We just never could make him work. I don't like left-handed pitchers in Baseball Mogul. Then when Andahar didn't work, we went and got Steve Mura from the Padres. How did he do? Sucked. Bad trade. Then we're like, okay, if we can't pitch, so we traded Hojo, Uger, and staff ace now for the Royals, Howard Bailey, for George freaking Brett. And he was great until he wasn't. He had a .324 slugging percentage before we traded him to Milwaukee this year, where he did much better. Ricky, see ya! To Houston. We did get Palacios, and Jeff Stone was very good. We turned around and traded Stone right back the next year. We got Jesse Barfield, no longer on the team. We traded Steve Mura for garbage. And in the offseason, we did a big trade. We traded Roger Weaver to Toronto, and we got Ken Smith and some money, I think, for Ken Smith. And unfortunately, he did not pan out either. He did almost walk 100 times for us that first year. And then this year in '85, he came out of the gate cold, stayed cold, was traded again to the Yankees where he had 9 home runs, including, I think, one big one against us. We also traded, oh no, that's what happened. We traded Cappy. I did not want to pay him to the Braves for money. Okay, 84. We're gonna do this somehow. Oh, this is all there is right here on the page. Perfect. So we went to the World Series this year. We did trade away Scotty Madison, who's now an everyday third baseman for the Mets, hitting 30 home runs, for Rusty Tillman, who helped us out a lot this year, but an everyday player. Bobby Ramos went to Kansas City. We got Schlubby Schlubbersons. We got Willie Wilson. That was a big deal for us. We gave up Lemon. No problem there. Doug Drabeck back to Kansas City. He's now in the rotation as a number 5 starter. Roy Thomas is yet to resurface. We traded, before the trade deadline, Morris Madden, who's now a big starter for Texas, 13-13. And we got Tom Hankey, who became our closer immediately and did a fine job, but we just could not afford to pay him. And Dave Smith, that is. Then we pulled the trigger on a starting pitcher, giving up Barfield, Roberto Kelly, Greg Briley, David Wells, and Jody Reese won the batting title this year in the National League. Had 205 hits. We just couldn't have Whitaker and Reed, you know? So we turned around and traded him and got Browning, who went 8-3 with a .338 ERA. We did not win the World Series. In fact, he was so bad in the ALCS, we put him in the bullpen in the World Series. And then we let him go to free agency, where he signed with the Giants and had a bad year. And then we traded to Cleveland 3 schlubs for some minor league money, basically. Okay, so there's 84. And then this year, folks, we were wheeling and dealing a little bit. Oh, this is tough. We traded Trammell and Glenn Wilson to California in early April for Todd Fisher, who's going to be our closer. We just lost arbitration to him. So he's going to be our closer, and he was great. Sorry to see Tram go. Then we dumped Kenny Smith in Minnesota, which allowed Minnesota to trade Cecil Fielder. We got Jim Eisenreich back, and Jim Eisenreich was a vital part of our season. Played very well. Then we, oh no, oh no, we traded away 3 schlubs for Damon and $400,000, which we had the money to spend, for Damon Berryhill, who at the time was ranked the #1 player in all of baseball based on WAR, and he batted .226 for us. He did kick it up a notch at the end of the year. He had 8 extra base hits in the last 20 games and batted .280 with 14 RBI. So, you know, there was something there, and he'll be our starter next year at catcher. But man, that was a big bust. And then we got Tom Gorman from Montreal for 4 schlubs, just giving up players. And we got Gorman, and that turned out great so far. He did kind of stagger into the finish line. But at one point he had an .068 ERA before he started giving up a few runs. And then we, oh no, we traded for Teddy Higuera. We gave up George Brett and Danny Jackson, who's our starter now. Jackson went 5-5 with a .298 ERA, figuring it out. Still more walks than strikeouts, so I don't give a crap. And George Brett did do better. But Teddy Higuera made 5 starts and then got injured. We cut him, because why not? We're not going to re-sign him for, going to a free agent year. So Milwaukee signed him back, and he became a free agent. And he won't be able to pitch next year, I don't think. So, I don't know. Then we sent Gibby to Chicago for some money. That's it. That's all the trades, folks. So, I don't know what else to say about our Tigers season. Overall, a disappointment. We did get to the World Series in the year the Tigers actually did win the World Series, 1984. And we did have a good run in 1982 with Lance Parrish in the best game we've had, hitting a walk-off grand slam in game 163 to get us to the playoffs, in which we lost to Seattle in 7 games. The 1984 World Series, we lost to the Mets in 7 games. We did not have the pitching. That was our problem in the 1984 series. So, all in all, kind of a bust. I'm disappointed. But all in all, I'm very grateful to all of you that spent even a moment watching any of the games that we did this year. We do have coming up the 1971 Seattle Pilots What If scenario. Here is the title card for opening day. All the cards are created by me for players who are on different teams. I made sure the 1971 Topps card actually has the correct team representing them. Of course, the Pilots I had to create from scratch. Opening day will be Dave Boswell versus Dean Chance. 2 interesting coincidences. Dave Boswell and Dean Chance, 1971 was their last year, and both of them started the 1971 season with the Tigers. So just some crazy coincidences there. Opening day will be October 1st, coming up in just 4 days. If you need entertainment, please watch some of my other videos. Keep my channel alive until we come back with an opening day game in Minnesota at Metropolitan Stadium. That's going to do it, folks. Thank you so much for everything you've done for the channel. We will be having plenty more giveaways during this season, every 40 games, doing a lot of giveaways, fun stuff, And don't forget, you can become a member now for $1.99 per month, and we will start doing giveaways where we're giving away actual graded cards, well worth $1.99 a month for an opportunity to win that prize. Okay, until next time, everyone, have a great day.